You're listening to Whoa! Potluck.
And hey, welcome to Books and Boba, a book club and podcast featuring books by Asian and Asian American authors. My name is Marvin Yue.
And I'm Rira Yu.
And on today's episode, we welcome back author Susan Lee to talk about her latest adult romance novel, See You at the Sunset, a enemies to lover / grumpy sunshine romance about two young people who find themselves together at a senior living community in Palm Springs. As always, Books and Boba is supported by our listeners. So if you've been enjoying our podcast and want to become a bigger part of our book club, head on over to patreon.com/booksandboba, where as an official member, you can access to our members only Discord server, where you can chat with Rira, myself, and fellow book club members in real time about all sorts of topics, including our monthly book club picks. And if you join us at the Honey Boba level, you also gain access to our monthly bonus podcast Boba Chats, as well as the opportunity to help us pick a quarterly Members' Choice book club pick.
Yeah, so Susan Lee is a friend of ours. We've had her in a previous episode to talk about her YA romance, the romance rivalry, and we're having her again to talk about her adult romance novel, See You at Sunset. And we talk about BTS. We talk about switching from YA to adult romance and the inspiration for her story, which, is partially based on her mother's senior center neighborhood. And we kind of just, have like a fun chat. We talk about a lot of things, kind of go on a bunch of tangents. So I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation with Susan Lee. And we are here with Susan Lee, the author of the USA Today best-selling romance novel, Julia Song is Undateable. She has also written several YA romances, including Soulmates, The Romance Rivalry, and The Name Drop. And we're here to welcome her back on the show to talk about her second adult romance novel, See You at Sunset. Welcome back to the show, Susan.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to have you here because we usually start our podcast with little icebreakers, like you would know because you were on the show before.
And I listen. I'm a listener.
I have not talked to anyone about this because it's only been restrained to group chats, which is usually just like texts. What are your thoughts on BTS withdrawing their submission for the Grammys? Because you are a BTS army. You've included the members in your thanks to in like every book. So curious to hear your thoughts.
Yes, I just think it was such a baller move. I don't think that I just honestly I did not want them taken advantage of again by the Grammys. There was so much discussion around could this Arirang album be even considered for the general large categories like album of the year. And then of course they came up with this Asian pop category. And in my mind, I was like, this just isn't it. And I am more shocked at how they announced it. It didn't come from like an official announcement from the company. Literally every 7 of the members dropped the exact same verbiage on their Instagram stories, which I was just like, they probably sat down together and said, this is how we want to approach this. And I feel very proud of them for standing on business. And I think as a marginalized creator in a publishing space and always feeling in so many different ways, even ways that I could not have imagined othered, I find it very inspiring, to be honest, and I am totally behind them in this.
Yeah, I mean, when all 7 members posted on their Instagram story, like before I even saw what they posted, I was like, oh, this is big. They're never on Instagram at the same time. There's only like maybe 3 members who are active, and all the others is just like, I don't know. I use Instagram to like post like commercials or
Yeah.
whatever. So I knew it was going to be a big deal, and I was so surprised that Yoongi was the first one to post that they were withdrawing from the Grammys, and the fact that the announcement was, you know, not official. It was just on Instagram, but also it was in Korean. Like,
Yeah.
it wasn't in English.
Yeah.
So you had to, like, Grammys had to translate what the hell they were saying. And I was just like, yeah, like, who needs who? The Grammy is losing
Yeah.
relevance. And
Yes.
meanwhile, BTS is on this world tour. And I know you've been to some of the shows
Yep.
already. I'm going to Dallas to see them in like in like 2 weeks, so I'm really excited. And just the fact that their album is called Arirang and it is like so Korean.
Yeah.
And I was afraid. I was like, "Oh, are they going to try and submit for the
I know.
Grammys?" Because I don't know. I mean, they've submitted with like English singles. They've been, you know, they've done like the bait and switch on BTS before, and it's not just the Grammys that's done this. It's like with the Korean military service
Yep.
as well.
Yeah.
Them, like these big institutions saying, "Hey, like dance for us, and
Yeah,
we might
yeah.
give you this reward." And it's like,
Yeah.
and it's funny how you brought up like as a marginalized author in publishing spaces, because I'm seeing a lot of marginalized authors talking about this and, you know, saying like, yeah, this is really relatable because we don't just want a seat at the kids' table
Yeah.
that you just built just so that
Yeah.
we could feel included. We actually want a seat at the table. And it's not even just like having a seat at the table. We want to be served the same meal as you're serving
Yeah.
all the other people at the table. We don't want crumbs. And I was just like, wow, like what a moment for
Yeah. I mean,
everyone in
truthfully,
the creative fields.
I feel like they have time and again given us reasons to be just so proud to be fans of theirs. I don't even doubt that a small portion of their decision is for ARMY, because they know that the Grammys have used us too for views and
For
stuff.
views,
and
yeah.
and then I know it's also for their own integrity and in the music that they're trying to create. And the, you know, I saw, I don't know if you saw a woman who apparently works with the Academy and helped, she's an Asian woman and helped create, I guess, this category, fought for this category to exist. Kind of went on a rant on Instagram. I forget her name.
Saw.
Oh my God. And it really pissed me off because, of course, I get very defensive and protective of BTS. But when she said that the way that they dropped this was for press, I'm like, girl, they don't need press. Let's not get this twisted. You know, it was done with such integrity, and I think it was done in a way that was like it's no room for discussion. There needs not be discussion. We don't want to talk about this. You know, you guys didn't talk about this when you created it, so we don't need to be talking about it now. And you set the parameters for the Grammys. We're just deciding if we want to play in this box, and we don't. And just a quick kind of aside, when I was thinking about when you were talking about Arirang, like when I released Julia's Song is Undateable, my first adult book, originally I'd gone to my publisher and said, you know, we can change the title if we don't think that this is going to resonate across the middle of America or on bookshelves. If people will feel like they can't relate to this, I understand. And truthfully, I was so thankful and impressed and grateful that my publisher was like, no, this is the title we want for this book. And I'm going to be, in all transparency, the book did not sell the way that I had hoped or believed it would. And I do believe that, you know, I'm not saying, aside from the quality of the story, which I think was there, but like, I do think that a title that felt very obviously Asian was something that blocks people. And but at the same time, I don't feel any regret for that, especially when I had the support of the publisher behind it. So I think about this a lot, like how BTS inspires me a lot in how I approach creativity and in this world of, you know, publishing. And so yeah, I feel like if my books are ever going to hit big in some way, they're going to hit big on the merit of however it will. You know, I don't want to do it on behalf of being the diversity hire or the one person who looks like me sitting invited at the table to the kids' table, as you said. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as someone who, when I would go to bookstores and look for books, would seek out the ones with like an Asian name or Asian face on the covers, like your book's going to reach the people that want to find it. And I think that's important too.
Yeah. I agree.
I also want to add, like, in the very early days of this podcast, like when we just started doing book news, like it wasn't just book news, it was a roundup of books that had come out that month. And I would be so thorough because I'm like, I'm sure there are some Asian authors who are writing under like pseudonyms, like white sounding pseudonyms, and I need to find them. So, so like I would like comb through and make sure like I like saw their headshots and stuff because like that stuff can be hidden. And I'm so glad I don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I'm
Actually,
so glad.
it's why I've been such an early listener, because it's so rare, that we find podcasts that are highlighting, creativity in Asian spaces. And I joke about this a lot, but I'm kind of not kidding. If a part of me wants to get a side pen name that sounds very not Asian at all, and write the exact same book, and just see like if it's the exact same book and maybe I just change the names. I don't, it's like I'm very curious because I didn't grow up as I grew up in a very white community. I didn't grow up as the type of person that blamed everything on racism. And in fact, a lot of times it made me uncomfortable using that as the default of why things don't happen the way that I thought they could or should. But being in publishing, it makes me feel like, and during this day and age of this administration and the world that we live in, it is the first thing I believe of anything that happens is it's racism, whether it's something you understand it is or not, from the people who are creating environments that are systemically racist, but it is. And I see it every day in publishing, how publishers spend their money, what books they spend it on, what books people are reading versus just adding to their TBRs. It's like, so I appreciate that you guys exist, but I also laugh that I totally have considered doing the experiment of the white pen name. And all of y'all will never know who it is. It's going to be an ambiguous profile picture, and I'll come back with the results.
You'll like have like a stock picture.
Yes,
from, like,
exactly.
Yeah. I was talking
I look forward to books by Susan B. Yeah.
Susan B. I was talking to an author friend like not that long ago, and I found out that they were writing like their debut novel was not under their real name. It was under a pseudonym. It was like a white person pseudonym. And I was like, oh, that's like so interesting. Like, why did you decide to do that? Like, it was your debut novel. It's your like first baby. Why didn't you want to publish under your real Asian name? And they were just like worried that the book would not sell.
Yeah.
And there would be like preconceptions on like, because like the main characters in their book were not Asian, so it was just like I don't want preconceptions about my book.
That's
but
fair.
The reason why they made the switch was because like at a book event, their dad was like their dad was there, and they're like, oh, how come your daughter's name is this? And this is clearly not their name. And he's like, like it's harder for Asian authors to get published than white authors. And I was like, that's so sad. And that was the reason why they changed to publishing under their real name. So I think it's like so heartwarming to see that like burden is being shrugged off now with this generation of authors. So just 2 points. Back around maybe 2021, when I was first getting into all of this 2020, I feel like maybe, especially with, hashtag own voices and organizations like DV Pitt and We Need Diverse Books, I do feel like we were making some strides. So this is when I was starting, and I'm like, I absolutely want Asian characters on the cover, and I want them to be unapologetically the center of attention. And I will not, bend to white supremacy, just all of this. And, actually like 3 or 4 books in, I got to the point where I was wondering if I was being too precious about identity and diversity, because a part of me was like, maybe if I'm not this precious about the outward
then maybe someone will stumble upon my book that they wouldn't have before. And so it really was kind of this crisis of identity that I was going through myself in publishing. And at this point it's too late. I'm not changing my name at this point. I still have stories to tell about Korean characters, but I feel like publishing has kind of like, I don't know, kind of like got me down a little bit at times where I'm like, do I need to be this precious about it? Yeah, so sometimes I think about it. But the other thing I was just thinking when you're talking about the dad is Hudson Williams of Hated Rivalry. I remember he gave this interview. He's half Korean. His mom is Korean. And he was saying when he wanted to be an actor, his mom's like biggest kind of like struggle for him or concern for him is that it's harder. It's harder because you look a certain way or because she looks a certain way. And I think it's really interesting. My dad was the same way. Like when we first moved to America, I wasn't born yet, but he had considered changing Lee, Lee, to like an Leigh. It's like they think so much about the opportunities in this land of opportunity when they come here. And it's kind of sad, but it's also, we're the generation that can, like BTS, be like, yeah, no, we're going to stand for what we believe, what we know to be right, for our own identity and on our own merit. And so, back to saying that I'm just really inspired by them.
Yeah. And I'm not a BTS fan.
I know you tell us many times, Marvin.
But I do like, as an Asian American operating in this world, I do like what they did resonate, because like those of us who have been in media, been in like this world, we all know that like awards shows, they're like opaque and kind of BS. There's a lot of politics going on, a lot of like when the fix is just so transparent. Yeah. It's like, I do appreciate the fact that we're at a point where we can decide not to play the game. Yeah. Right. Just like not participate because we don't need it, or it's not like it's like, it's cool to have an award, but it's like, it's not like they've already made it. Like they don't need extra validation from like, this very, very American institution too. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's truly, I saw a response about this or an article, and, what is the truth is only BTS could have done this. No one else could have made this stand and it to have made this ripple effect. Oh, BTS is the biggest band in the world. They're the only ones that could have made this. And I think what's funny is the Grammys are trying to make it a BTS thing now against the Grammys versus like, a bigger conversation. And like, sorry to always take it back to publishing, but at some point, there has to be a big enough name in diverse circles where they can make some of the conversation and statements happen where it matters, when they say something. Like mid-list author me, I might complain about the way that I get marketed by my publisher, but like 100 people nod and agree, and other people just are like, okay, But at some point, I hope that like there will be diverse authors and creators out there who can be the ones to say, to make some kind of statement and stand for all of us.
Yeah. So like we've been talking about like BTS and like media, and I do want to like, talk about your most recent book. So for those of us who do not know what See You at Sunset is about, can you give us a short synopsis?
Sure. I'll hold it up so you can see it. Oh, I am like,
beautiful cover.
There we go. So I will be totally honest. I had such a hard time writing this next book. I enjoy writing in the adult romance space, but I wasn't really sure what I wanted to write about. And but this story is about a young girl named Jia Chung. She's in her 20s. She is called into a meeting with HR. This was my former career, so I'm very well versed in what this feels like for people. And she is terminated from her job suddenly, and this is not her first termination. She's kind of gone through many different jobs, as sometimes people in her 20s trying to figure out what they want to do. And when she's fired, her parents who are both lawyers were like, not again, Gia, and at this point you need to move home to Florida, and you're going to work for us, and we're going to get you on track. And she just knows that if she decides to do that, she allows that to happen, she will not have any more choices for her life. So she flees to Palm Springs to live with her grandmother for the summer. Her grandmother lives in a senior living community in Palm Springs. And, she's trying to figure it out. And then when that happens, she sees a young man across the street who's moving his grandfather into the same community. And then when she sees his face, she realizes he's the guy that she had an anonymous one night stand with a couple weeks before back in New York. And then when she meets him and hears his name, Henry Shin, she realizes he's the lawyer that signed her termination paperwork. So the two of them are now in the summer in the desert with a bunch of octogenarians who are meddling and trying to get them together. And they're working through, like, he's very buttoned up. He believes in following rules, and she is very free-spirited. And it also explores how they became that way, like their parental units and how they were raised. And ultimately, they find love, as one does in a romance novel. So
yeah, I wanted to ask you, because you've been writing young adult romances for like your past couple of books, and maybe it's because I saw on Instagram, like not that long ago, of you like doing the documentary trend where you like sit down in front of a chair and you're like, I'm about to explain to my mom what finger fucking is. And I was just like, yeah, like what is that like for, it's just like, oh, I'm used to Susan writing, cute rom-coms. And then it's like, bam, there are sex scenes in this book, Mom.
Yes. Well, to be fair, to be honest, my mom doesn't read my books. My books have not been translated into Korean, which is kind of a sore spot for me with Korea, but I get it. Like, I don't think Koreans are that interested in Korean American life. I think they're more interested in Koreans writing about Korea, which I don't technically do. So, so she hasn't read them. I'm more kind of embarrassed when I go to my family gatherings and my cousins and their kids who are kind of in their 20s and of age. I just pretend those chapters don't happen. It was really important to me when I started writing adult that I wrote healthy relationships, that I also feel, especially in Asian culture, we're very, K-dramas are very tame. We don't talk a lot about like sex positivity and health amongst consenting adults. And so it is important to me to show that in these books. It is intentional to be an on-page sex scene author, namely because I think there are so many stereotypes about Asians, both on the male, female, non-binary sides, that I in my own way want to make sure that feels normalized and very healthy. So
yeah, I mean, like for you, like, was it uncomfortable writing those scenes, or were you just like, I've read a lot of romance novels, like I'm a pro? No. Oh, so you were uncomfortable.
It's the hardest part for me, honestly. And it's like, it goes back to like, our heritage. We don't talk about stuff like that, and like, even amongst my Korean friends, I remember Axio and I were hanging out once, and like, we were just like she says, she just always somehow opens to a sex scene on one of my books. Like, it's happened multiple times, and it got really like, oh, I don't want to talk about this with you, Axie. It's like, it's such a weird thing on how we're raised. I don't know. It's like, so it's hard. But then when I talk to my white friends, I'm like, oh yeah, they were like banging on page 5. And like, it's such a different thing. I don't know. It's like, it's totally me. I have issues, but, so even in the privacy of my headphones and laptop, I'm always like, oh, I don't know if I can push this. I don't know if I can push this further. And so, but what I do hope is that it's true to the characters and to the story. And I do hope, like with each book that I write, especially in the adult space, that it becomes, I get past my own taboos about some of this stuff. So.
Right. Susan, you're a longtime listener to this podcast, so you probably know about my unfortunate luck in always reaching the sex scenes whenever I'm about to pull up to a drive-through window. And I was able to acquire the audiobook for your book to prepare for this podcast because
I didn't know that.
I take care of I have toddler twins now, so I have to listen while I'm taking care of them. And let me tell you, the embarrassment of like pulling up to a drive-through, listening while it's blaring on my speakers, much less uncomfortable than having the sex scene kick in while I'm trying to feed my toddler's lunch. I had to like pause, like put the headphones down because like I can't deal with this right now.
I haven't listened to it yet, but I am such a fan of Michelle Kim, the audiobook narrator. She also narrated Julia Songa's Undateable, but I knew her from YA. And I had originally wanted her for one of my YA books, and she wasn't available. And so when she was available for my adults, I immediately took her on. And so I've never met her. I wish I could. I love her on Instagram. She's at K-Drama Foodie, and I just know that she's exactly my type of person then. And but I've always wanted to ask her, like, how she feels about reading sex scenes, especially from like, it's one thing to read it outside of your norm, but amongst a Korean author and Korean characters, I was just wondering if it was awkward for her. So, but she's so good, I've heard. So
yeah, her voice, she does a lot of great voices. Like her voice work is really, really good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. Yeah.
So why did you decide to set the book in Palm Springs? And I have to mention, like, the setting alone reminded me of Emily Henry's People We Meet on Vacation, because also it takes place in Palm Springs during the off season. That's the important part. It's the off season.
Yes. Okay. So I just want you to know I'm in Palm Springs right now during the off season. It's 119 degrees today. So this is how I come out every year on the off season, and it's because you guys can probably relate. My dad was the cheapest man alive. So when we went to family vacations, it's when we could find it the cheapest, which was always late July, early August in Palm Springs. And that's because we've come to find it's when everyone leaves because it's too hot. You can't leave the indoors at all. And so I kind of grew up in Palm Springs in the off season of the summers. That was like our summer vacations, because all we would do is swim, and then they would go to the casino at night, you know? So I jokingly, not even jokingly, like I call Palm Springs my cottage, which is a heated rivalry reference. Like the cottage is like someone's favorite place to go to relax. So I love Palm Springs in the off season. I love that it's quiet here. I can get into any restaurant. No traffic. It's really fun. So I wrote this last year while I was in Palm Springs. And because I was living it at the moment, I think it just was so fresh in my mind. I knew I wanted to set it in the desert. And I set it in a retirement or senior living community because we had moved my mom into a senior living community right around COVID, around 2020, I think. My dad had passed a year prior. She'd never lived on her own. And we moved her into a senior living community, which was different than what I had found out for the first time. I never knew it was different than like a nursing home or assisted living. Like a senior living community is they all have their own homes. They live on their own. They're just amongst each other, you know. And during the lock-in during COVID, I came and stayed with her, and it was just a different world. It was so quiet. All lights are off by 7 p.m. in the homes. You know, it's like all the fences in people's yards were like 4 feet tall, and they would just come and look over the fence and start talking to you. It was like such at first I thought it was such an invasion of privacy, but I came to just really be endeared by kind of these nosy people. Like another thing that's funny is the guy next to us, he had served in wars, and he was like an 80-something-year-old man, and he kept calling me Oriental. And I wanted to tell him, like, you can't use that word anymore, but like, oh my God, I can't tell him that. You know, he's 85. Like he can't, like he gives a shit, you know. It's like, so those little things just felt very dear to me. Like, you know, and so I wanted to kind of honor letting people grow old without infantilizing them. And it's interesting, my editor, one of the first things she said to me is she goes, I just wanted to bring to your attention in case you didn't notice, your books are usually so much about like the Korean experience. There wasn't a lot of Koreanness in this book. Are you okay without having that? I'm like, you know, I actually am okay. It is Korean characters. We don't really talk about their plight as Korean Americans, but I was okay because there was a different diversity that I wanted to really touch on. And this was kind of like, you know, ageism and taking advantage of older people and the needs of older people and how we as younger people can be caretakers while respecting people, how we want to grow, how I want to grow older. And I really wanted to kind of handle that with some care as well. And I feel really good about that. It's one of my, the older characters are really my favorite in the book.
I wanted to mention, like, you know, like you mentioned, like the Koreanness of your characters in this book. It's not as like explicit as your other books. And I wonder if that's because like Gia and Henry's parents are like second gen. And it's like, yeah, like Gia and Henry themselves are third gen. They are not like the children of immigrants. Like there's like a degree removed. And, you know, while I was reading your book, I was like, wow, their grandparents are really cool. Like they're real chill. And I'm like, I've never seen Korean like elders, like 할머니es and 할아버지's like so relaxed and so like full of life as well. Like was that like part of your planning as well, being like, oh, okay, this is like third gen, so they're gonna be different?
Truly, yes. Thank you for noticing that. Because I am second gen, I only have experience of like first gen immigrants who have lived in Korea most of their lives. And when I was writing YA, I still write YA, but as I was writing YA books, I really had to like figure out how this was going to work, because when I think of parental units, I think of people who came from Korea. A lot of our teenagers today, their parents are my age, born here like I was, and would never kind of behave a certain way. And I realized at some point I needed to try and shift the way I look at parents in my books, as those are now actually grandparents and great grandparents in this day and age. And so I did want to try what these under 30-year-olds, what their parents would be like. So it could be people like older than me, but who grew up here. And then grandparents who maybe spent the bulk of their adult lives here. And that's why I didn't feel the need to have to discuss how you make kimbap or why Koreans do things a certain way. Like I did in Julia San, because I was looking at them, a little bit more generational and close to Korea. But here I was like, oh, a lot of the things that I would have spoken about with Korean American characters, I kind of stepped back from that, because I was like, a lot of what they know about Korea is really just through like pop culture or whatever. So, so it was intentional. It was new for me. It was I used to believe that if you're going to write diverse characters, they shouldn't just be able to be switched out with white characters. And I don't know that I believe that as strongly anymore, in the sense that I think these newer generations of Korean Americans are just like everybody else, and their parents are kind of just like everyone else's parents. So I did just want to test that out a little bit with this book. So yeah. And I think that some of my readers will notice this. My editor definitely noticed it. Rira noticed it. It's like, and I'm okay with that. It's like I am on this earth right now to write the Korean American experience, and like we've always said, that's not a monolith. So I like being able to explore different kinds.
Yeah, I mean, I think as a member of like the the Asian American diaspora, like when I was listening to the book and reading the book, like they're always Asian in my head, because those are the characters they literally named Henry Shim and Chia Chung, right? And so like, I don't think they need to explicitly say, oh, let's have Han Chang to be like Korean, right? Like we can get that through just like context clues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I like knew right away that the relationships were going to be different, because they call their grandparents by like their first names.
Their first names.
Like,
yeah.
I was like, what? Not harmony, not harmony. Like they're your like government name. Okay. Let's go.
Yeah. And it's so different from Julia San, because I just thought it was so funny, because so many non-Korean readers, the way that they referred to Harmony as if that was her name, they're like, oh, I just love Harmony, her grandmother. I was like, that's the same thing, but okay, yeah, fine. But it's like it was such a distinction of how they referred, that first name thing.
But also your characters, both your main characters, Henry and Jia, come from kind of dysfunctional families where they relate more to their grandparents than their actual parents, right? And that becomes a big part of like why they're so attached to, their grandparents and the senior home and want to be there, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I think it is interesting that we we kind of accepted how generationally our parents and grandparents for some people are. But this younger generation today, of which I am, realize I'm not really a part of, but there are a lot. I admire that there's so much more of like taking my own life and making decisions not based on pleasing someone else. And so I think, having almost this trauma or a little bit of like a hardship with a parental unit and how their parents are, and doing everything they can to be the opposite of that is an interesting, like it was interesting to explore.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring up, since you talked about like your mom moving into like an elderly like HOA neighborhood, like what have the elders there personally taught you about life? Because I feel like, there's a quote in the most recent season of The Pit where an older gentleman, he says like everyone knows what it feels like to be young, but not everyone knows what it feels like to be old.
Yeah.
And I just feel like, we do infantilize elderly people once like the younger generation become the caretakers. So
Yeah.
what have the elders personally taught you about life while you were living in this neighborhood temporarily?
Yeah. What's interesting is like, they are of, like, I used to believe that like I get this choice of how I feel about my neighbors. Like that neighbor's a crotchety old man. That woman over there is like the Karen of the neighbor, like in a normal neighborhood, and in the senior living community, it's so interesting because everyone's so different and has a lifetime of experience that's so different. But the one thing that is true is that they build true community. And that's not like they spend time together. It's like they will check in on each other. Like if they didn't see someone's like garbage bins out that week, they're immediately like, let's do a wellness check. Someone walk over next door and check in on it. And that sense of, like, I call it emergency contact community. Like I know I can call them or they're going to be looking out for my mom. It's like when I went away to Korea for 3 months when we were living there, and she had just moved in, and I wrote these little notes to each of the neighbors and sent cookies and just said, my mom's going to be on her own for the first time, if you can check in. And like they showed up with like fertilizer for her garden, and they just like they didn't bother her. They were just like, you good girl, and it's like, so I just think that sense of community and that we're all here to take care of each other in a way of like, it just surprised me so much. And it was not something childhood house I grew up in, we lived there for over 20 years. And I knew all my neighbors, but I didn't know if someone was sick. I didn't pay attention if their garbage bins were out in the front. And it was just different because in a senior living community, everyone needs a little extra help. Some of it is a physical disability. Some of it is emotional disability. Some of it is, we know that they don't have any family that visits them, so it's like, it's interesting how there's just like that sense of community was so strong and heartwarming. And it was one of the things that made me realize that like these people have lived through wars. They've lived through poverty and depression, and they've lived through hard times and good times. So I have way more to learn from them than me saying, why are you driving so slow? It's like, that's like not even a big deal in the grand scheme of things. So yeah.
One of the so at the Sunset, there's what Gia does is like come up with a calendar with a bunch of activities because she becomes like the event coordinator.
Yeah.
And I was just like, wow, what a booked and busy schedule these old people have. And they have a book club where they read like spicy romantasy, and it's just like, wow, this is such a vibrant community. And I was just wondering, like, if you could attend a community activity aside from book club, because all of us here would join the book club, what would it be?
Yeah, I feel like water aerobics would be my thing. Like, I really feel like I could get into it, like low impact, you don't really sweat, but it's like good for your body. And like a lot of the stuff that happened in the Sunset actually happened in my mom's community. Like they send out a newsletter. They do have water aerobics. They have like karaoke once a month. And it's like these people are all so different. And it's just funny that they come up with these things. And they do have book club. I for Christmas one year when I only had my YAs out, I had wrapped my books up for like the nearby neighbors of my mom's and dropped them off as gifts. And they're so cute because one of the neighbors said, "Well, I didn't expect there to be profanity on the first page." I think I said like shit or something. And then another lady's like, "I gave it to my great granddaughter." And I was like, "Is she over 13? I just want to make sure, just like," but it was just really funny. And yeah, so I think I would like I feel like when I move into like my final resting place home, I'm going to be all involved. I'm going to like, right now I never leave my house, but like, I'm going to become an extrovert. Like these people like have a good time. Have you ever heard of The Villages? It's in Florida. It's like it's a huge community. It's probably the biggest in the nation of senior living, but it's known for like it's like spicy. Like it's the jokingly like it has like STDs are rampant there. Okay, so my mom's senior living community is not like that at all. In fact, we always not laugh, but we notice that it's mostly women outliving their husbands because it's a lot of grandmothers who live on their own, and very few, like probably 5 to 1 that it's women to men, and yeah, they have a good time. My mom was learning how to play bunco or whatever, some card game. And I was like, "Oh, okay, you go," so.
Yeah.
I feel like there is definitely a mahjong club.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, 100%.
Yes.
I just learned there's like a white person version of mahjong rules that's different than how we
the
Chinese
rules
people
are
play
different?
it. Yeah.
Well, I know it's very, very popular right now amongst kind of like white suburban ladies. They love mahjong right now, so.
Yeah. I mean, there's the whole Hallmark movie, but we don't need to go there. But
No, we don't need to go there.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that movie is unspeakable.
So we've gone almost 40 minutes without talking about the central couple in this romance. And so I just wanted to ask, like, you've written a lot of romances, YA and adult, played with a lot of different tropes. This book is marketed as enemies to lovers, but I kind of feel like Gia has no enemies. She just has people she disagrees with. But it's more like, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm still learning all the tropes, but like it's more like a grumpy sunshine type of situation here. Can you talk about how you, developed the relationship, the romance, and like what made you want to like play with these two characters?
Yeah. I mean, truthfully, that was marketing that came enemies to lovers. And I also don't agree that it's enemies to lovers at all. I think if anything, it's just like misunderstood. It's like in definitely grumpy sunshine. I mean, I am not a studied, learned writer. Like I tell stories. I have never like studied creative writing or any of that stuff. So I lean on like what is maybe I don't want to say the easiest way to tell a story, but I do lean on I don't want to make it hard for myself. So with something like opposites attract, grumpy sunshine, I mean there is just there is tension built in right then, right there. And so I think when I started, I just knew that premise of he signed her termination paperwork, this guy, and I then built from there. Is he the soft guy or is she the soft one? Does it play best if he's like by the rules and she's not, like, and so I kind of built it from there. I just knew that one premise, and it kind of comes from, I used to work in HR in my career, back in the day. And it's that premise of, you're always seen as the bad guy because you have to do the administrative side of this, even though you had nothing to do with someone getting fired. And so I kind of built from there to find Henry and Gia, but I wanted there to be a dichotomy of like, why is he this straight-laced? Why is he so grumpy? And also, how does that impact him both physically, mentally, emotionally, in relationships? And then I wanted like kind of a free spirit, but I didn't want her to be like unlikable. Like I wanted people to like believe that she's going to get control of her life. It was just that she couldn't find yet what that was. And that really stems from when I went to college. I went to UCSD. And back in the day, really, people only talked about being a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer. in like some bigger category of businessman. You know, you didn't know that there were things like PR, communications, HR, community management, you know, that stuff that we didn't really talk about those things. And so how does one find their way to a purpose and a career that's interesting and satisfying for them if they've never experienced that, you know? So I kind of wanted that to be her story. And then, you know, them having kind of this crash course of what happens because from that get-go, he signed her termination paperwork. And are they going to be okay with that? Is that something they can live with each other? And so that's kind of the tension and conflict that exists.
It was fun to read because it felt like all the conflict was on his end because he overthinks things. So.
Yes. Yeah. And she's just like, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things I really enjoyed about Gia was she loses her luggage at the airport and she just like never goes back to pick it up. And that's like part of her journey, right? Because fashion for her in New York was like an armor, was a way to like not only express herself, but also to protect herself from criticism and, you know, to show that I am an adult and I need to be taken seriously. But when she lands in Palm Springs without her luggage, she's going through her grandmother's closet and she's just, you know, having a great time mismatching things. And she's just like, I don't care. I don't have to like look good. I just have to like pick whatever I like and experiment. And it just like reminded me of like how much of a safe space she had with her grandmother. And you dedicate your book to the people and places that offered you a safe place to land. Can like care to share who have been the people who have offered you that safe place?
Yeah. I mean, one of them was, and I wouldn't say it's one, it's that community of where my mom had landed in her senior living community, because I don't think like when my father was ill and passing, I lived in New York, they lived in San Diego, but I flew home every Thursday through Sunday to be a caretaker to get, you know, help my mom have some time off. And when he passed, like of course, my first concern is my mother has never lived on her own a day in her life and never a day in her life in America, you know, and I just didn't believe that she could, you know, so I immediately moved out here and two things happened. We found a place for her where she could be safe, which ultimately made me feel very safe. But secondly, she surprised me. Like she was way stronger, way more capable than I ever gave her credit for. She lives a much more extroverted and active social life than I do. And she really started to thrive. And I feel like that combination of she could be safe somewhere. She wasn't living like where I had to worry about her, where she was living amongst peers, and that allowed her to thrive. For me, that like, it kind of changed everything for me. And it also was one of those reasons why I was able to pursue publishing, because just knowing that she was going to be okay. And also my dad made her okay financially, so that I was like, okay, I could kind of pivot from a career that was pretty lucrative and very successful and start anew in publishing, which is notoriously not a great way to make a living. So in a roundabout way, that book was really dedicated to the community in which my mom moved into. But for me personally also, just it triggered some really deep and great friendships in the publishing world that have allowed me to be able to tell stories like this. So
yeah, you are pretty tight with the romance writers community. I feel like I always see you with someone, like whether it's like Allie Hazelwood or just like someone else. And I'm like, wow, Susan is like so extroverted. Like, look at her. Like, also, like you had like your San Diego like book signing tour that you organized for a bunch of authors. So when I was reading your book and seeing Gia, I was like, oh, there's so much of Susan in here, down to the fashion, because you're also like a big like fashion girly with like the outfit of the days, and you know, you're a sneakerhead as well. So I was like, I was just like, oh my God, so much of you is in this book. And like I just absolutely loved it. I just wanted to mention that.
I do want to clarify, people don't believe this. Even my friends don't believe this, but I am an extreme introvert. I am. Like any given day, my choice is I would rather be at home by myself and my dog. I do go out to a lot of events. I do love supporting people. Like that has been very important to me. Like I like seeing people succeed, and I like to be there and be present to watch it and cheer on people that I, care about. But I am an extreme introvert. And as I've gotten older, I also have like really pretty crippling social anxiety. So, I have made a large group of acquaintances and friends, but I think now I am I have a small circle of people that I can trust, like, with everything, so that I can let some of my anxiety go. If otherwise, when I just have a really hard time, like, I think they kind of work hand in hand. Like I have this anxiety, and then it just makes me want to run and go home, and and then I go home and I'm just exhausted. And so yeah, it's like I think I'm a very social person, but truly my essence is introverted with a high dose of social anxiety. So I always want people to know that is truly the real me. So
And also, like, you have very interesting hobbies. Like,
oh, yeah.
aside from like K-pop, like, you also do like custom keyboard building.
Yes.
Like, I mean, this is like completely tangent, but like, what made you go into that? I feel
Yeah,
like it
this
was
was
like overnight. I was just seeing
Yeah,
you
it was
build
overnight.
these.
So
Yeah.
I was a big, like, I used to watch a lot of Twitch streamers. Like I was just kind of fascinated of watching people online. And I started seeing these desk setups that were just really aesthetic and lovely. And usually gamers have just like black keyboards and everything is very sparse and dark. And I started seeing these really aesthetic setups, and I saw these women like with long nails playing and stuff. And so I started following them like on TikTok and YouTube, and I watched like just how they built their keyboards, and it just got me down a rabbit hole of how do you take off the keycaps? What's underneath? I don't want to break anything. Can I do this? And researching the kind of mechanics of mechanical keyboards. And then just time wise, I ended up in Korea, and Korea has an entire neighborhood. It's called the electronics neighborhood. It's right over by Yongsan. And they have a full street of keyboard shops. And so I just started going in, and like, these were not cheap. They were like $200 or $300. I'm just like, what the? So just figuring out what makes one better than the other. And I just went down a rabbit hole, and then I started like connecting my book side creativity to this technical side, and started making these keyboards that like reflected books or, inspired by books. And it just like, it took a life of its own. And, that just it's been really fun. It serves kind of both sides of my brain. And, yeah, it's a random hobby, but I love it.
I mean, it's like kind of tied to writing because,
Yeah.
you are using a keyboard. You are,
Yes.
I've seen so many writers with like multiple keyboards, like
Yes.
not just like the
Yeah.
cute, smooth butter keyboards
Yeah.
that make like the nice ASMR sounds, but like also like split keyboards.
Yeah. I
And
have many, and I will say, like, for me personally, if I get stuck, I will switch out my keyboard, because just changing something tactically, audibly, it's just like changing it up makes me feel like I started a new session, a new writing session. So, and then if I'm on a roll, I get weird about, superstitious about, this has to be the keyboard I'm using. So yeah, it's an extra, like, there's just this extra piece of, a tool to use to spark your creativity.
did you have to use that tactic a lot for this book? Because I don't know if it was for this book or if it was a different book, but I do remember there was a time where you were procrastinating
Oh, it's
a
this
lot.
one. Yes.
Oh, it was this one.
Yes. And quite frankly, I thought this book was so beyond deadline. I thought we had agreed that we were pushing the pub date. And it turned out my publisher never agreed to that. So we had some hiccups, like my arcs came out late. I also, this is kind of news, I haven't like really announced this yet, but I had told readers, because during my pass pages, which is your last edit pass, I had hidden the song lyrics of Arirang, every song lyric, including number 29, in the pages of this book. I changed certain things so that they would work out, in the text. And I got my final author copies, and I'm going through to find them, and they did not put half of those changes in past page 100. And a lot of this happened because this book was really rushed at the end because I had turned it in so late, and they just had agreed. They were like, we're definitely releasing this in the summer. And I thought, oh, summer of next year. Yeah, no, it didn't happen that way. But what's crazy is I love the way the book turned out. It's just a lot of the admin stuff kind of flopped. So we'll see. But it turned out okay. And what's actually funny is the book that I'm writing right now, it's my next YA. It's also past deadline. I just asked for an extension. And literally the email I sent to my agent is, one day I will write a book that is on time. But today is not that day. So can you ask for an extension, please? So
I mean, it's nice that you have that comfortable relationship with your agent and editor.
I'm terrified. Like for a week, I'm like building myself up to ask. I'm like, can I write 50,000 words just in this week so I don't have to ask for extension? The answer is no, I cannot. So every time the answer is no. So
I'm always really impressed by authors with multiple books like on deadline at the same time. And I'm just like, how are you able to do that? That's
crazy.
Yeah. So you are promoting your book, and it has a very busy book tour. Like I feel like starting from August 11th, like you are just doing an event every day. So can you tell us what events are coming up for our listeners?
The joke is I actually told everyone I wasn't doing a book tour for this book because I thought it was coming out so late. And here we are, 2 weeks planning later. It starts August 10th, which is the day before my book comes out. We have a very special event because I'm going to be in Baltimore for the BTS concert. And we partnered with Charm City Books. It's 5 minutes away from the stadium. And me and Allie Hazelwood are doing a signing before we go to the concert. So it's a BTS party. Then I go to New York on the 11th. I am in Miami on the 12th. Then I go to Dallas, Salt Lake City, Temecula, Bay Area, Phoenix, Seattle, and end up home in San Diego. So it is a 2-week book tour. All of the information can be found on my website, susanleewrites.com. A couple of the stops are sold out, but most of them still have tickets. I would love to see you. I know there are so many book events these days, but I'm bringing my friends. We're going to have a great time. As introverted and social anxiety ridden as I am, I do love book tour and I love getting to meet readers. So I would love to see you guys out there.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on the launch of your latest book. Looking forward to all the other books that you're writing, hopefully. Thanks, more guys. On time than not.
Yes. Good luck with that one, Susan.
But yeah, thank you so much for joining us once again on Books and Boba. So nice talking to you.
Always a pleasure. I love you guys. Thank you guys.
And that was Susan Lee. Her latest novel, See You at the Sunset, is available now at bookstores everywhere, including, as always, the Books and Boba bookstore. So if you enjoyed our conversation with Susan and want to check out her latest book, head on over to booksandboba.com and check out our bookshop. As always, all purchases made on our online bookstore support not only us here at Books and Boba, but also your local bookstore. So definitely appreciate everyone who has purchased a book from us there so far. Before we go, just a quick reminder that our August 2026 book club pick is Claire and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro, a science fiction story about a android friend learning all about humanity. This is a Kazuo Ishiguro book, so be prepared for some melancholic feels. I'm definitely prepared myself for just feeling bummed, but hopefully hopeful at the end.
Yeah, if you guys have read previous Kazuo Ishiguro books like Remains of Day and Never Let Me Go, you guys kind of know what you are in for.
Yeah, so we are discussing this book as we read along on Discord. So if you are a Patreon member, don't forget to let us know your thoughts on the book as we read along. As always, we love to include your feedback in our book club discussion whenever possible. And with that, that'll do it for this episode of Books and Boba. Thank you once again to Susan Lee for joining us, and we'll see you all next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Books and Boba. This podcast was hosted by Marvin Yue and Rira Yu and edited and produced by Marvin Yue. Follow the book club on Twitter and Instagram by going to @BooksandBoba and engage with us on Goodreads on our Goodreads group. You can also check out past episodes of the podcast by going to booksandboba.com and by subscribing to us on your favorite podcast app. Don't forget, you can support Books and Boba and Asian American authors by purchasing books at our bookshop.org account. Check out the link in our show notes and also at booksandboba.com. Books and Boba is a proud member of the Potluck Podcast Collective, a collective of Asian American hosted podcasts featuring unique voices and stories from the Asian diaspora. Learn more about the collective and check out our fellow Potluck shows by visiting the website podcastpotluck.com. Thanks for listening.
Hey, I'm Phil Yu, and you may know me from a blog called Angry Asian Man.
And I'm Jeff Yang, author, journalist, and celebrity dad.
We host a podcast called They Call Us Bruce, an unfiltered conversation about what's happening in Asian America.
Each week or so, we host a discussion about some of the most vital and interesting topics in our pop culture and our community, bringing in guests who are shaping and informing this thing called Asian America from Hollywood to DC and beyond.
We got media, entertainment, food, family, politics, representation.
The good, the bad, the WTF of it all.
So check us out wherever you get your podcasts or at theycallusbruce.com.
Peace.
Peace.
Hungry for spicy food and even hotter conversations? Craving community and authentic storytelling? Then join the table. This is Minor Legends, a new comedy fiction podcast supported by Potluck. Pull up every week with me, Angela Wong Carbone, and follow the stories of me and my friends as we serve up tasty tales of what it means to be Asian American at our weekly dinner hang. If you enjoy deep dishing on absurd stereotypes like tiger moms who tutor your dating game rather than grades, the insanity of your parents' immigration story, to the legend of that one good Asian cousin you can never live up to, then pull up a seat and grab a plate. Featuring dinner guests like Ronnie Chang, Brian Park, Usama Siddiqui, Celia Au, Perry Young, Supriya Ganesh, and more. It's a tasty rotation that'll leave you belly laughing and steeped in relatable and spicy conversations. Can you take the heat? Listen now for free wherever you get your podcasts.